I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think that there's been a lot of changes in the church over the last 50 years, maybe longer, that haven't been good. And we've been having this trend that needs to be changed. And so if I were to stand in front of the General Conference again, instead of just raising the one issue that I rose last time, I would raise a different issue. And the issue I would ask is to set the entire agenda aside for the entire General Conference. And what I mean by that is set aside the part of the agenda that relates to the Constitution and bylaws and relates to the church manual. If you look at this agenda, it's a lot of busy work, and it's not really addressing the main problems that our church is facing today. And I would say that I've learned that there's a lot more facing our church today than just the vaccine statements. And what we really have is a church that hasn't talked for a long time. We have a church that is divided amongst liberals and conservatives, but we're finding out that even those labels aren't particularly accurate, and that there's a lot of division even between those labels. And so those labels, honestly, I don't even like anymore. And one of the things I've, well, not that I ever really particularly liked them, one of the things that I've been trying to do is to talk to people from different sides of the aisle, so to speak, to see what they actually think. And one of the things is we've all observed is that there's a tremendous amount of authoritarianism right now. And I think that this particular agenda that we have in front of the GC is an illustration of that. There's a lack of trust in the general church. There's a lack of trust in the delegates. And so what they've done is they've created an agenda that doesn't address any of the big issues that's facing our church today. And so I believe if I were to stand in front of this assembly, I would say, let's set aside the agenda now. Let's limit the amount of reports. One of the things that happens at these meetings is they give us a lot of reports that would have been just fine for us to watch on YouTube some other time. We've brought people from around the world and spent literally millions of dollars to make this meeting happen. And so I would limit those reports to no more than 1 hour a day and reserve the rest of the day for discussion. And then I would allow the delegates to set their agenda on a daily basis. Every day, start with a discussion of the agenda, set the agenda, and I believe that this opens the door for the Holy Spirit to work on the hearts of the delegates. If we have this agenda that's made in some place a long distance away, we're not really looking for the Holy Spirit to move upon the hearts of the delegates. What they're really doing is playing politics to keep the real issues out of the hands of the delegates. And I think that it's time for the delegates to be the adults in the room, to recognize that they are the highest authority in the church, and to really talk about the issues. Now, I'm not going to say this is going to be easy. I feel like we have a situation where it's kind of like a family that hasn't talked in a long time. If you have a family that hasn't talked, hasn't been open, with real open dialogue in a long time, those first conversations are going to be very difficult. And I think that this could be very, very difficult. But that's what I would propose. And I would like to urge all the delegates. I think during the time when they're calling for an approval of the agenda, that there will be delegates that stand up. And I would urge the delegates to listen carefully to those that do stand up and think about what they can and can't support. And I think that we need to move towards changing this agenda and allowing us to really talk about the big issues. And we may not be able to solve any of the big issues in this one meeting. It may be that you have these issues that end up requiring more study, and I'm okay with that. But just be sure they don't get tossed under the carpet, and be sure that they aren't just set aside to some executive committee somewhere. This is really important business. And the church has governed itself this way all the way back from the times of the Acts of the Apostles with the Jerusalem Council. And we need to have good, open dialogue, just as was modeled with the apostles. So that's what I would do if I was going to stand up. And I would stand up and I'd say, I move that we amend this agenda to eliminate all discussions of the Constitution and bylaws and the church manual, and I would move that there be no more than 1 hour of reports each day, and I would move that the agenda for each day be set each day by the delegates. That's what I would do if I had another chance to be a delegate.